Welcome to the Happy Mama Movement podcast. I'm Amy Taylor-Kabbaz, mama, journalist, coach, and founder of Mama Rising. This podcast is a space of community and collaboration. We gather stories of matrescence, motherhood, womanhood, and change told by our Mama Rising coaches and mothers around the globe, in the knowing that through our stories, we can begin to heal and change the way the world sees, values, and supports mothers everywhere. So, welcome to the Happy Mama Movement. And welcome to an episode of Take the Mic. Take the Mic is an initiative of Mama Rising to hand this platform and this microphone over to one of our amazing Mama Rising coaches and facilitators around the world to give her a chance to share her story of matrescence and motherhood, the stories of the mothers in her community, so we can all hear each other's stories, heal together, and change the way the whole world acknowledges matrescence and motherhood. So here is one of our coaches.
Hi there, my name's Jade Estelle, and I just want to say thank you for having me here on Take the Mic. It's a real privilege to be able to talk and share my story and my journey of matrescence. I have been journeying along this path probably ever since my son was born, and he's my second child. He is 9 years old. He actually just had his birthday last week. And I also have a daughter who is 11. I am a solo mother and also work in the matrescence space, but also work as a secondary school teacher, which was, of course, my first profession, and fortunately for me is a profession where I've been able to learn a lot and I guess develop my teaching skills and learn to interact and communicate with a whole range of people, really. But it's also a profession that I have been able to step back into that supports my family after a separation and a divorce. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about my passion work and my experience of becoming a mother and that transition into matrescence, which becoming a mother was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, and it was unexpected. I think that, like many of us, grow up thinking that it's so natural and almost like every woman becomes a mother and knows what to do. And so this was some sort of conditioning that I had that it will just come naturally to me. And I look back now, over 11 years ago when I was first pregnant, and think about how anxious I was and how scared I was the whole time, but really wouldn't stop and admit that. I just kept pushing on through, I guess suppressing these emotions, worked my butt off. I worked so hard. I was still actively teaching full time, and just didn't allow my body the rest and my mental space, the time to really kind of focus on what was about to happen, what was about to unfold in my life. That busy mum syndrome was definitely something that I was pushing on through. And then when she came into this world, it's a massive identity shift. Um, I didn't really know who I was anymore. And all I knew was that I had this tiny little human that I needed to keep alive. So I guess in some ways it was very much a survival mode. And again, tried to busy myself, tried to occupy the time with appointments and trying to catch up with any friends that were on mat leave or weren't working full time, all the while really, really struggling. But I could not, I wasn't ready to face that yet. Um, I knew that something wasn't right, but I just again just thought this is how it's meant to be. This is what it is now. This is what it is to be a mother. So I guess my expectations were a little bit of having the rose colored glasses on, that everything would be okay. I would know what was going on. And to some extent life would go back to normal. I'd be the same person, I'd have the same feelings, but that is definitely not the case. I was not the same person. I was very emotionally attached to my firstborn. Um, she was a little bit of a tricky first child. Had a few challenges, which I look back on, and that first year of her life was very, very difficult. When she was about 1, I did, I did take us, I think it was more myself, but I did take us to a sleep school. And in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best thing for her, but I think it was something that I needed. Deep down, I needed help and I didn't know how else to ask for it. So I guess the way that I could try and get help was through her. She wasn't a great sleeper. And so a year in, I was absolutely exhausted. So I went off to a sleep school trying to get her support with her sleep. But I think there I was removed from my home. I was removed from the routine, and it became very obvious very quickly that I was very, very sad. I just felt sad all the time. And I expressed that to one of the support workers there, and I guess it got the ball rolling, and eventually was diagnosed with postnatal depression and anxiety. And that's where the healing started. I guess this is part of, for me, the spiritual awakening, where I did have to really force myself to find time to connect with myself and it not be all about her. So even finding time to leave the house without her was challenging in the beginning. I think part of the cracking open and me stepping into the woman, the mother that I am today, was getting that courage to step away from her and do things for myself and know that it's okay. I remember very distinctly having a hairdresser's appointment, And it just felt so bizarre that I was away from her for so many hours. And, that's the anxiety kicking in. But yeah, I really remember that quite vividly. But the more that I started to do these things, the more it became okay. And the more that I realized this is actually quite good for me and quite healthy. And with the encouragement of some health professionals that I had as well. And I started to connect more with yoga and moving my body, which also was a huge shift in finding myself again, um, finding that authentic me. But also with yoga, it's that space that you get where you can also have reflection and contemplation, and just starting to build that back up of who am I? What do I want? What's the type of mother that I want to be? And it took a while, but I got there, and then decided to have my second child, which was a whole different experience. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to have the two different experiences. He was much more content, much more happy. Um, but as it is when you're a second mum, you get more confident as well. So when he was about a year old, I discovered Amy Taylor-Kabbaz, and I started doing some of her programs, which the first one was based around a practice of meditation, which really helped me and helped to quiet my mind. And then through that, there was so many cracking open moments where I learned a lot more about myself. And I learned this concept of matrescence. And I remember Amy talking about how the feminine or the feminist movement in the 70s, of course, incredible and so needed for us women to be able to somewhat be seen as an equal, be able to enter into the workforce and really do what it is that we want, whether that is being a mother and having a career, whether it is not being a mother and just focusing on your career, or whether it is that you choose to stay home with your children, giving us a lot more choice and a lot more voice in that. But there was something about that that really struck home to me. And I think it was that we were then, as women, given permission to do it all, to be it all, to almost step into this role of being a superwoman, which actually made me feel quite sad, because here I was trying to be that superwoman, trying to be the mother, be the wife, keep the household running, integrate back into work. But my body couldn't cope with that. My nervous system couldn't cope with that. And I could see how this expectation was making women sick, is where we become overwhelmed and burnt out. And I had this moment of, I think that if I knew some of this stuff and knew society treated new mothers differently, potentially my suffering of postnatal depression would have been lowered, and potentially the rates could be lowered as well. So that began my exploration of matrescence. And as I mentioned before, I really stepped into my yoga practice, which I loved, which I then went on to become a yoga teacher. And through that, started to learn more about my body, started to learn more about how my female body operates in terms of my cycle, and learnt about nourishing that and working with my menstrual cycle and the 4 phases that we go through, and how I can then integrate that into my life of how I show up in the world in these 4 phases. And as a secondary school teacher, one of the subjects that I teach is health. And I started thinking, we don't get taught this in school. We don't get taught how to work with and understand our own bodies and the cycles that we move through every month. And I came up with a program for mothers and their daughters around educating young girls who are getting their first period, their menarche. I think this is where part of my teacher background came into it, but also as my yoga teaching experience. And I had already been running circles, so facilitating women in circle and gatherings and holding that space, but integrating the two together and getting the mother and daughter to come along to something that is quite ritualistic and nourishing, but also allowing the mother and daughter to bond and come together over something that is a huge rite of passage and something that should be celebrated and encouraged. And moving away from this shame that surrounds your period and this embarrassment, and even the lack of confidence, the self-confidence that we move through as we turn into women. Our bodies change. Again, it's another identity shift. Our hormones are changing. It's a really tricky time. So I developed this workshop called Girl Becoming, and mothers and daughters get to come together and we discuss and we share, we learn, we talk, and the girls walk away feeling really empowered, um, and having the age appropriate knowledge that they need to move through this phase. And a big part of it is to celebrate this rite of passage, to really embrace it and share it with people who are close to us, our family members, our friends. And so this program is very dear to me. This program is something I'm extremely passionate about and really want more and more mothers and daughters coming together and bonding and creating this special relationship, but also doing it in a way that's quite going back to our roots, sitting in circles, sitting with women of all ages, sharing that wisdom, feeling safe and supported as we do it. As an extension of that, I now also am a trained womb massage therapist. So, working with women of all ages and nourishing them with this beautiful, beautiful ancient practice, which helps to balance out and regulate your cycle. And also allowing you to connect with that part of your body, that center, that that internal wisdom that we have, which is our womb. So this is where I am in my journey of motherhood at the moment, balancing solo parenting, balancing my teaching job, but then also continuing with my passion work, with this work to work with women of all ages, young girls, helping them to connect with their cycle, understand themselves better, which overall is going to make them feel good in their skin, make them confident, and almost like have this inner knowing, this direction of where they're heading. And if you'd like to know more about any of my workshops or my womb massage, which I run from home, however, it's also a mobile service, you can find me in the show notes below and reach out via socials, reach out via email through my website. It's there, all available for you. Thank you very much. And I'll hopefully be in connection with you beautiful ladies soon.